Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levenske, aka Mac and Blue.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Mac and Blue. I'm JJ Levenske, your host and current president of Bleu General Contracting. Very happy and
hesitant.
Hesitant. And no, he didn't get this out of a Cracker Jack box, but we have Dr. Rob Wengrzyn on, a guy, colleague, aficionado, whatever, that I've known for quite some time.
Very true.
So, Dr. Rob, or Rob as we'll call him, currently works at Intel, but we're not going to focus on that too much today.
Yep.
But Rob and I met a while back in just construction-related things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And today, kind of want to focus on leadership. But before we get into all the nuts and bolts, we got to give the audience a little bit of flavor about Rob in the background. So,
okay. All right.
All right. Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Somerville, New Jersey, of all places. A little small town about 2 hours south of Newark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any good war stories?
From there?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a ton of them. If I told them now, the police might come and track me down. I want to try and stay away from that.
All right. So you're in the witness protection
Pretty
program
much
now?
Exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. Me and Ray Liotta, we just hang out all the time.
Tell everyone, so, naturally you're a doctor now, but I think everyone, tell us a little bit about your educational background, because it wasn't like a nice little linear path.
Oh, no, not at all. It's interesting. Actually, I was working for an organization that's going back now 100 years. I said, man, without my bachelor's degree, I'm just not going to get through the glass ceiling. So I went and back for my bachelor's degree in marketing and minored in project management. I got that done. I said, without an MBA, I'm just never going to get through the glass ceiling. So I went back and I got my MBA, and that was really my introduction to teaching. One of the instructors that I had was on the board of, back then, it was Western International University. It's no longer around anymore. But and she said, you'd be a really good teacher. You ever thought about it? I said, no, never gave it any thought at all. So I applied and I got the job. And then I realized that leadership and understanding leadership and learning about leadership and talking about leadership was kind of a passion. So I got really lucky to start teaching at Grand Canyon University, where I teach a lot of their leadership courses.
So how long have you been there?
At Grand Canyon now, probably about 5-6 years.
Okay.
I want to say. And then I decided to go back for my doctorate, because not only in organizational leadership, but also because universities like GCU, places like that, are looking for really quality people that want to invest the time to really learn, leadership and stuff like that. So I went back and finished up my doctorate. I actually just finished it up in October of last year. I got that all done and wrote my dissertation. And
well, in our social circle, we've used it as a punchline, but
most people do.
It is legitimate, everyone. He is intelligent. He knows what he's talking about. And yes, he has a comedic side as well.
Yes, he does. He's never lost his comedic side at all.
But how long have you been East Coast guy?
Yeah.
How long have you been in the Valley?
25 years. I was in New Jersey. I met my wife. A week later, she moved in. A year later, we were married.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved to Kentucky. Then we moved to Illinois. Then we ended up in Arizona.
Oh. Do you have kids?
Yes, I have one. I have a 27-year-old son. He's ready now finally to move out.
Oh, you're one of those families.
I had to keep drawing him a map to the front door.
Our producer, there's hope for you to couch surf a little longer.
No, he wanted to move out a long time ago, but he was working for an organization where I told him, I said, I don't want you to move out and just live to make your payments. You got to have something put away. So, and now he's more than ready to move out and find out what life's really all about.
So what makes you tick? What's outside of work? Because we're going to get into plenty of work stuff.
Yeah.
What makes Rob tick?
What makes Rob tick? Well, hanging out with people like you,
Oh, there's always
when I need an insanity break.
Like the lowest common denominator.
Nobody else is left on the list. I'll just call JJ.
Yeah.
But no, for me, it's really my family, obviously, and stuff like that. But for me, it's really music. I've been a musician since I was about 14. Did some studio work, did some touring, have a little studio in my house, and write and record. Don't get to it as much as often as I'd like to, because life gets in the way.
So you can do instruments and sing?
Oh, yeah. Believe it or not, yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyone that needs a new choir director.
You don't want me? I think I'd burst into flames.
All right. Well, thanks for the background,
No
Rob.
problem.
It's always nice to get to know everyone more on the human side than anything. Um, the main reason I wanted to get you on was leadership.
Yeah.
You know, I want to keep it under an hour, but just start talking. I mean,
No, it's easy.
go back to when you knew that leadership was something pivotal to you, how you wanted to teach it, embrace it.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with it. Let the audience into kind of what spearheaded all that for
No,
you.
most certainly. I can remember to this day, I was working at Mobile Mini, and there was a gentleman there named Kelly Williams. There's a gentleman there by the name of Kelly Williams. And Kelly, at that time, I want to say he was the president, I believe, or CEO, I forgot now. But I had been there for maybe a couple of months. And he asked me to come into his office. And I'm like, oh, this can't be good.
Last time you were in the office,
this is not
you did
good.
the 8th grade over again.
No doubt about it. This isn't good. So I walked in the office. We sat down. He says, well, I heard you're kind of our resident propeller head when it comes to leadership. I said,
Hold
well,
it. Resident propeller head?
meaning I was the only guy in the
All
building.
right, Layla, write that one down. Resident propeller
Resident
head.
propeller head. So I said, I study it and I teach it and stuff like that. And he says, let me ask you a question. I said, what? He goes, how can I become a better leader? And this is a guy that runs a
Hold it.
yeah.
He asked you.
Yeah, runs $500 million company. I sat back and went, wow, that's really what it's all about. Like, he doesn't have all the answers and he knows what it's all about. So we would start talking about leadership. I mean, we'd sit in his office and talk for an hour or 2 hours just about leadership, just different aspects of it, different functionalities of it, right? Because we came to the conclusion after many, many conversations, we came to the conclusion that it's not about being a leader. It's about thinking like one. Some people can't turn that corner to think like a leader. It's one thing if you're getting KPIs and you're getting things done and objectives, and that's great. We all got to do that. But are you really leading people? Are you making them better? Are they growing and stuff like that? So, excuse me. So we started developing our own leadership model within Mobile Mini, which was pretty cool. And we started with, and actually I kind of got this from Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, being a Christian school, talks about Christian worldview. And I said, well, why can't people just have a worldview, period? Right? I mean, your world, how you view it, Sean's world, how he views it, Layla's world, mine, everybody views it differently. If you're a single parent with 3 kids in Brooklyn, you're going to view the world totally differently than a married couple in Biloxi, Mississippi. It's just the way things are. So we sat back and said, well, the first thing we have to do is we really have to understand our own personal worldview, how I view the world and why I make the decisions I do and why I preconceive things that maybe I shouldn't and things like that, and then understand the worldview of your people. So if I understand how you tick, how you view the world, I can work with you and develop you and coach you easier than if I'm just trying to ramrod leadership talk, for lack of a better word, down your throat, And, the iceberg analogy, right? It's overused all over the place, right? But it's the truth in this. So the 20% above is the what. The 80% below is the why, and that's where the worldview comes into play. So you have to kind of understand how and why people view their world. And it works out, it's pretty interesting. And when I was at a company called Wesco, I really got a chance to really implement this full tilt boogie, and it worked. And it kind of surprised me. I kind of sat back, and there's 2 other parts that I'll talk about here in a little bit, but it was interesting to say, wow, it actually works. It's one thing to come up with, it's another thing that actually works. So that's really where the whole start really happened.
So stay there. You're still at Mobile Mini.
Yeah.
Then how did those conversations, when did it started to, walk me through or walk the audience through how that started turning into action or deployment or whatever you want to call it?
So we developed the full model. We'll talk about parts of the model later on if we have time and if you want, but we got through the whole model. And
hold it. Did you?
There's 3 other parts of the model. I'm sorry. That's okay.
I know this is the wrong word. Was it plagiarized?
No.
Or did you guys come up with something brand new?
All completely brand new. Yeah. So really quick, just the 4 parts, but is worldview. Then you have sense making, which we can talk about as we.
Yeah, I do want to.
Okay.
Make sure we get back to that.
Yeah.
So keep going.
Building equity and then socially influencing. And this was between me and Kelly. It wasn't just me. He and I worked together on it, and because he had a lot of real world. I mean, this guy's been around the block a few times. But so once we started putting all that together, we kind of sat back and said, well, let's try it. And we actually launched it at one of the trainings that we had, like our national sales meeting and stuff like that. And people came up kind of with aha moments, like, now I get why I'm not turning the corner with this person, or now I get why I can't make that connection. I'm like, yeah, because you don't know how they're viewing the world. You're seeing the what. So the what is, you're late every day. So I'm going to do this, do this, do this. Well, wait a minute. Why don't you find out why they're late every day? That's the key to thinking like a leader. You get around the problem, not just the what, but why is that problem happening? So we actually instituted it there at Mobile Mini. And
so, let me, because
Sure.
this is my job, I have to interrupt you and ask
okay,
questions.
that's totally fine.
I'm thinking, When you started finding out those whys, how did you, and if you can't talk about some of them, I understand, but like
No, it's good.
when at Mobile Mini, what were some of the things that you then, adapted and then deployed then to handle or mitigate that blindness to the 80%?
Yeah. And we literally started talking to people we started giving them examples.
Okay.
Right. The most,
Can you think of one?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's the one that makes everybody go, yeah, I got you there. The Pope and Donald Trump view the world totally differently.
Okay.
They have different worldviews. If I'm going to talk to the Pope and want to lead him, for lack of a better word, or Donald Trump want to lead him, I have to understand how they view the world. It's not going to get anywhere. I'm stuck. And if you think about it, we've both been in sales pretty much all our lives, one way or the other. It's a little bit of a sales side, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Understanding about people and doing discovery and stuff like that. But if I don't get how you view the world, I can't connect with you as a person. And what's really interesting about this is, hopefully, if she's listening to the Cat podcast, she can. She'll blush a little bit. There's a girl named Celine McFadden. She worked with me. I never said for me, with me at Wesco. Mm-hmm. And I was there for maybe a year or so, and I was doing what I was doing with leadership and all that great stuff. And she came into my office one day and she shut the door. She says, we need to talk. I'm like, oh boy, this can't be good. There's another one I don't want to go.
And now he's doing the 9th grade over again.
Why these just keep happening to me? But she said, I owe you an apology. And I said, for what? She says, I've been really tough on you. I said, keep being tough on me. I said, I don't get a pass just because I'm the leader and the manager. It's got nothing to do with it. And was that like equaling of the relationship, for lack of a better word? I still had to make, I was still responsible and I had to make decisions. I had to be accountable to things, but I wanted my people to know that I'm in it with them, and I wanted them to explain to me what they think. And they started coming up with their own solutions. And this is a team, quite frankly, that during COVID grew 30%. That branch. And they did it all on their own. This wasn't me. They were the ones out there grinding and making it happen. But there was that openness of me understanding each person and them understanding me, quite frankly. So we knew how to kind of talk to each other and go back and forth. And we did the same thing at Mobile Mini. And the next phase, if I can, of all this,
go ahead,
is sense making, where, as you can see, driven by how you view the world, everybody makes sense of things in their own way. And again, it's not good or bad. You just make sense of things. You put the pieces together, how they work for you, and that's how you're going to make sense of a problem.
So are you saying, what, and again, if I botch this.
No, it's okay.
What's the difference between that and confirmation bias then?
Well, confirmation bias is really when you kind of have two things kind of fighting against each other. Sense making is just how you'll go, oh, when I show up here today, I bet you JJ is going to show up and not let me talk. Well, why would you know that? Why'd you already make sense of that before you even got in the door? Why would you do that? Which is a bias action to your point. It is
biased,
It's totally biased to your point. But we told people.
And a lot of subconscious.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Absolutely. But it's driven by how they view the world. So we would tell people, okay, well, as a leader, you first have to understand how your people make sense of things. Then you have to see what you can help them change some of their perspectives here and there to look at things differently that help them grow. And again, Celine McFadden, I go back to Celine a lot, but her and Rachel and everybody in that group that did such an amazing job. But she really grew herself. It wasn't like Rob was there and coaching her every 20 seconds. She really grew herself, and she gets it. And Rachel Rentschler, who also was there, she went on to a management position, and she gets it. She understands how to put those pieces together so she can look at how someone's making sense of something going, I really need to coach them so they can see it this way. Not that it's my way, but just the way they're going is not going to help them grow in a company, be in front of a group of people, make a presentation. It's going to kind of stop them. And there's a whole thing about sense breaking and then sense realigning. And that gets a little too deep psychology-wise for me. It works, but I prefer to just go, well, tell me how you got there. Tell me what that was all. And as they start explaining it, you go, oh, now I know how you got there. And that helps with the sense-making part.
It's funny because as you were talking about that, and as I was reading some of the cues here on my cheat sheet, it was, I literally was microprocessing as fast as I could going, of all the leadership books I've read, listened to on Audible, whatever. I think this is the first time anyone's formally talked about sense-making.
Yeah. It's just because they want to write books that people want to buy. I just want to help people lead better. I don't care if they buy a book or anything else for that matter. That's really what it's all about.
So in sense making, do go a little deeper. What are the profound things you found that have helped organizations to allow that sense making to happen with individuals?
And it's interesting when you look at it from an organizational viewpoint. It's does upper management allow, for lack of a better word, people in the street to be able to make sense of things and listen to them? Because they're the people that really know what's going on. When you're in the field, when you're at a construction site and you're the site super, you're living the world right then and there. So If someone way up the ladder doesn't want to listen to your perspective, like they're not making sense of what you're talking about, that's where there's a disconnect. Because just because you're at the top of the ladder, at the bottom of the ladder, doesn't mean your sense making is good or bad, right or wrong. It's just different. And you should pay attention to the people who are kind of in the fight, for lack of a better word. So what happened is we would sit there and show people why they're making sense of things a certain way. And you have all these aha moments like, wow, wait a minute. I didn't even realize I was doing that. Yeah. This is like, I'll be honest with you. I had a gentleman that worked for me, and in my history, the way I made sense of things was, if someone's always late to work, I'm never gonna be able to turn them around. They're gonna be late to work. It's just, I've never been able to fix that. This gentleman fixed it for himself. And it was the first time it's ever happened. So it broke that thought process of me going, well, wait a minute. I am a little biased. I'm making sense of this thing already, seeing what's coming at me and going, this is what's going to happen. Well, maybe it's not. And then when he showed me that, he was the first person to ever show me this. Way to go, man. I appreciate it. So, and just to be able to keep learning. And the challenge is really in your organization, and I've known you as a leader for a while, I know you're very open. You listen to people and stuff like that. It gets a lot harder when you're basically working for shareholders. When there's stocks on the line, and what are the dividends looking like? That puts a whole different spin on this thing, to say the least. But it's still relevant to how you're going to make those numbers happen, how you're actually going to get from point A to point B. So if I understand how you view the world, I understand how that influences how you make sense of things. And if the way I'm looking at you making sense of things is detrimental to your growth, from what I know about where I've been, the bullets we've taken over, right? Hey, you just don't do that in this kind of setting. That's really where the sense making stuff kind of comes into play.
Okay, so jump to then, how does that transition to the third element?
Okay, the third element is, wow, you're really good at this, JJ. I'm pretty impressed.
Every once in a while I pay attention.
You have an epiphany.
They're looking at Sean over there with just making funny faces
Sean's
at me.
making faces at him over there saying, geez, are you kidding me? So the next one, and this is one that Kelly Williams was just unbelievable at, was building equity. Okay? You have to have equity with your team, because the reality of it is, if they don't think you're in the fight with them, if they don't think you're going to roll up their sleeves and do whatever you got to do to make things happen, help them out in a obviously ethical and legal way and stuff like that, but then why should they really support you? I've always kind of said, well, wait a minute, if I'm not listening to my employees, why should they listen to me? So if you build equity with them, like a good example would be, I'll go back to my Wesco days, they'd be really busy. I'd start entering quotes and entering orders. I'd screw them up. I'd ask them, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? A million times. But I took the weight off of them so they could do other things. And that showed them that I'm in the fight with them. We're all going to try to make this happen together. So as you build that equity, we all have to have tough conversations with people, right?
Right.
There's going to be come to Jesus meetings. It's the nature of the beast. It'll never go away in a million years. But if you've got a lot of equity with them, they're almost upset they let you down. They know where you're at, because you're about to tell them something. You're going to give them some of your equity back, because you're about to kind of say, here's where the rubber meets the road. Mm-hmm. And Kelly was amazing at that. You would literally leave the office depressed that you let him down, because he was that good of a leader and that kind of a guy. Like, man, I can't believe I missed the boat there.
Okay, so let's say that was an inherent trait in Kelly or you or whomever.
Yep.
How do you train to that?
That's the hard part. You have to care. You have to want to be.
You already started caring.
Yeah, you want to be a part of a team. In other words, you want to be a participant, not a director. You don't want to tell people, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that, because, well, then, it's like, I always get the analogy of, like, after you see the beach at Normandy and, the general walking over the dead bodies going, we really kicked their butts, didn't we, boys? Who's we? Dude, we were here. You weren't. What's that about? So the reality of it is, you have to be involved with them. And you know what? In me, and this is and I know you live this way too. You roll your sleeves up. You're in there all day long with it. If you're not going to be in the fight with me, then you're not in the fight. It's pretty simple. And some people never get that. And quite frankly, the position they're in, maybe they don't have to. If I'm a executive vice president of a regional and I've stepped on people to get here and everything's working fine, why am I going to change now? And maybe you don't have to. But if you're a growing leader and you're in a leadership position for the first time, and let's be honest, you don't have to have a title to be a leader.
No.
At all. And if anybody out there thinks, you have to be a manager or director, no, you don't. You just be a leader and go. Right? That's all we need. But if you're not going to be at that kind of level to be able to pull people in and have them see you as a human being and do what you have to do to help them out, it's not going to work. I mean, I would walk the floor 3 or 4 times a day just to get a pulse on my people. How are things going? Where you at? Just to know, so I knew what was going on, keep them updated, keep them motivated. What can I help you with? They knew I was in there with them. And My job, this sounds strange saying it now, but my job was to keep corporate off their desk so they could get their job done. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And they were just, there was an amazing, I don't think I'll ever get that special of a group again, to be honest with you. It was really special, to say the least.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Bleuwave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Bleuwave to get it done right the first time.
When you were talking about the equity and, rolling your sleeves up and getting involved, again, I'll fall on the sword here just so other people can relate to it. If anything, I've found that I'll get too involved.
Oh, yeah.
And then that leads to again, back to sense making and perception. It's that's micromanagement. I'm like, no, I'm really not trying to micromanage. I just want to be that engaged with you.
Yeah.
But because of my personality, it'll come across as being too strong.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm listening to you and hearing you and going, oh, wow, there is a balance there. You just got to be cognizant of it and then make sure you don't go over too far.
Yeah. Well, and knowing you and knowing like your business, and you run a phenomenal business, and, you're a great person and extremely handsome.
I fake it pretty well then for you. So keep going.
The reality of it is what I needed to learn to let go of, and this is a tough thing for a lot of leaders to let go of, is you have to learn to let people fail. Even if you see it coming, you're like, I want to be on the pulse of this with you because I can see that punch coming. I can see it. You got to let them take the punch sometimes on their own. You don't want to lead them into with their jaw or anything like that. But
a gut punch won't hurt.
A gut punch won't hurt every now and then. No, you want them to, just kind of, learn those lessons. We've all learned them. It's just a matter of whether you want to get through them or not. And it goes way back for me. When I was maybe 25, 27 years old, I can remember to this day, I was on an airplane flying from Dallas to Phoenix, America West, back when America West was still around. That's how back this goes, right? So I'm sitting on the plane, and I was traveling so much back then, I got upgraded to first class. I'm sitting next to a gentleman, and I asked him, hey, what do you do for a living? Because I'm a sales guy, right? Oh, I'm a salesman. I was 25, 26. He was probably like 42, 45. So he was ancient, right? So I'm going to pick this ancient guy's brain. Now I'm looking at him going, geez, I wish I was that young again. But so we're talking about it back and forth, talking about sales back and forth. And we're landing into Phoenix. And he looked at me and said, can I leave you with one last bit of advice? And I said, sure. He says, a customer doesn't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care.
Yeah.
But I've always used that towards my people.
Yeah.
They don't care how much I know. They want to know, do you understand this? Hey, my son this, my daughter that, go. And if you give, I'm going to say this might upset some people, but if you give the right people enough rope, they'll pay you back for it. You can give a lot of rope to the wrong people and they won't. It happens. It's just part of the package. It just comes along for the ride. So you learn to read people. And in my current role, I have a lot of people telling me, well, you can read a room pretty fast. I said, well, when you're in as many rooms as we've been in, I mean, how many rooms? Like 8 million rooms in our career. You learn to read them fast because you just gotta, but that also goes back to sense making, right? Wait a minute, I can't jump the gun on what I think this person's like, or when I think that's the way I'm reading this relationship, so I got to always kind of take a step back and take a spoonful of my own medicine, right? And go, wait a minute, before I go ahead and say, well, JJ's this, I might want to get a little bit more information before though you do come across, well, I can't say it live, but.
Okay, so then transition to the fourth element.
Yep, fourth element is being able to socially influence. Again, something Kelly was unbelievably good at. I always tell my people, my folks that I work with and stuff like that, when we go out, I don't have a business card. I'm not your boss anymore. If it's after hours and we're just out at a bar or something like that, I want to get to know you as a person and see what you are comfortable telling me. Right. And a lot of people are like, well, you should keep an arm's length. No, if you don't know your people, you shouldn't keep an arm's length. What are we, a bunch of just finance and accountants just looking at data and nothing else? There's people still behind the numbers. Let's get real. So you have to be able to socially influence them, see how they live and see how you live and how you look at certain situations and things like that. Just because everybody, a gentleman by the name of Sean Duncan, He just got a promotion. Sean's going to hate me for not remembering his promotion because I just reached out to him on LinkedIn about it. But he was a vice president of field services for Cox.
Okay.
And I teach servant leadership at Grand Canyon. It's something I happen to believe in, as you can tell just by the way I talk and stuff like that, hopefully. But he came into my class and he said, because he actually runs a servant leadership class at Cox Communications, what I thought was remarkable.
Oh.
Absolutely remarkable. So he came in and he was asking everybody in the room, why are you taking this class? Why are you going back to school and stuff like that? So I was just in the back kind of paying attention because I wanted him to do, have his
Hold
time.
it. So you were let me get this straight. He was a guest in your class?
In my class at Grand
Keep
Canyon.
going.
Yep. And if I can get any other guests, I will, and take in a heartbeat. They love to see real things. So
Rob doesn't have to do his job. Sorry, did I say that out loud?
yeah, actually, and I'd never invited JJ, but
But wouldn't pass the background check to get on campus.
no doubt, wouldn't do it.
But the ankle bracelet would
Ankle bracelet gave it away. Yeah, no good. But so he got to me and he said, Professor Wengrzyn, why do you teach this class? And without thinking, I said, because everybody needs a hero. And I realized that not everybody has those mentors. Not everybody has those people that'll take the time to show them what they've learned, where the battle scars are, where the bullet holes are, right? I have a gentleman named Sam Delp that has been my mentor for years. He's 74 years old, and he's the complete, absolute opposite of me. He's as easygoing as they go. He's really low-key. He's 74. He has a full head of hair, which I hate him for if he's listening. He has a full head of hair, so I hate him for that. But he's always steered me in a direction where I never would have thought of it because he's been down the road longer than I have. He's been through these things, and as opposed to getting things done, I prefer to have people learn why it even happened in the first place so they can understand what's coming at them in the future and kind of, that runway gets shorter and shorter and shorter as you start to realize, I can see this coming. Again, going back to making sure with the sense-making side, you don't make a lot of preconceived notions and things like that, but that mentoringship, that culture, that growing people, and that's why thinklikealeader.net was really put together. So I can go out there and if people ever want to talk about thinking like a leader, I can say, well, it's really different from what you're going to look at now. It's extremely different from what you're going to look at now. As you said, the books and all this, no one really talks about this way. They want to talk about, I guess the best way I can say it is, there's so many leadership styles out there, right? There's situational, transactional, transformational, laissez-faire, leader-member exchange. It goes on and on and on and on, right? So you really need to have them as arrows in your quiver. And it's not the leadership style you choose. It's the style with which you deliver it. You can deliver transactional with a hammer or a feather. How do you want to get it done and what gets things taken care of? And most of the time, if you're like people like us, somebody wants to come bring a hammer, okay, let's go. You want to bring it? I'm okay with that. Let's go. But some people don't work that way. So you want to be able to make sure that you can present your perspective to them about whatever arrow you pull out of your quiver so that it connects with them. Because if it doesn't, you can say I had the conversation, but if nothing happened, then why bother to have the conversation, right?
Exactly.
Thought your head was going to explode on that one.
Well, you got a million things that are going through my mind as you're talking. So take these 4 pillars, if you want to call them that.
Yeah.
What I want to ask you is, where do you see the biggest mistakes being made? So let's say someone kind of has a comprehension of these 4 pillars,
right?
And they have some inherent skills and at being a leader,
right?
And then they go and hey, I'm going to work on these,
right?
What do you see as the mistakes being made? What I guess what I'm asking, Rob, is what do they try too hard on? And fail because they're not taking it for what the truest value of it is.
And it's interesting that you worded it that way. I was going to say the thing that really comes down to is sincerity. You have to really want to. You just can't sit there and go, I want to be, this one I'll work on the most because this is the most important one to me. Do that, but do it from a sincere perspective. If you want to have a worldview and you want to learn people's worldview, don't do it because some guy somewhere said it was a really cool thing to do. Do it so that you understand because you want to do it, because you embrace learning about it. But if you look at those 4, it's interesting. If you do worldview, sense making, and socially impacting, socially influencing well, then the building equity part comes pretty simple.
Okay.
And if you have equity with your people and they know you're there for them, that part becomes easier because now you've listened to them, you understand them, you know what they're all about and all that. So if you really don't do those first 2, if you really don't do worldview, let's be honest, if you don't know how a person thinks, how can you ever connect with them? You just can't. You can, but it's at a very superficial level.
Just from, again, just being exposed to these right now.
Yeah.
As I look at these, when I see, I'm in no position to be judge or jury, but I'm just saying, let's say you're in a peer group and you look to someone and go, wow, they're good, but to be great, they're missing one. I would say the social influence is the weakest one.
Oh, totally.
Usually.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was teaching a class at Grand Canyon, and it was a innovative leadership class. And one of the things that we did.
How are you qualified to teach again?
I'm not. I used your resume.
Sorry, GCU. You might want to look at the plagiarism on his. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't make fun of Rob.
No, that's totally fine.
All right, love you, man. Keep going.
So what I did is I went and I got, some people aren't going to remember this, the old mousetrap game. Remember the old mousetrap game, right? So I said, well, it's a course on innovation. So let's go out there. So I got this mousetrap game, and I said, okay, look, here's the deal. You only have 3 rules. I think it's 3 rules as I go through. I don't remember them now, but you have to turn the crank to start the ball rolling. The ball has to be put back to the start when you start, and the cage has to drop. Outside of that, you can do whatever you want to augment the game, to innovate it. Okay?
Okay.
So they started thinking after a while, like, well, wait a minute. He just said the cage need to drop. He said it didn't need to drop to the. I said, no, I never said it need to drop. I said it just needs to drop down. It doesn't have to go all the way to the bottom. So there was this group, and this is dead on the money for what you're just saying about. There was a young gentleman in the group. Took charge of the group immediately. Yeah. Natural leader.
Alpha.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Burn the ships and let's go. Yeah. Right. And there was a young girl there, and she was trying to get her point across, and he wasn't listening to her. So I said, hey, can you guys stop a second? I said, can I take you guys 2 out in the hallway here real quick? So he said, yes. We walked out in the hallway. I said, let's say the guy's name was Mark. I have no idea what his name was. I said, Mark, just sit tight 1 second. Susan, what are you trying to say? So she said, I go, you know something? She's right. And if you would have listened to her, you wouldn't be in the position you're in right now. And it kind of was like an epiphany for him, a little bit of a wake-up call. Like, look, man, she figured out that it doesn't have to drop all the way. So, because the goal was, how many pieces of cheese can you get in 2 minutes? And people are getting like 85, 90, 106 pieces of cheese, because the thing only has to drop like that much and goes right back up here, right? So I said, I pulled him aside after and said, so what'd you learn? He said, yeah, I got to learn how to listen. I said, well, you got to learn to socially influence people. She was afraid to tell you what she thought. She wasn't comfortable.
Just because of his disposition.
Yeah, and she wasn't comfortable in the group opening up. And it's your job to be able to socially make that connection and help her to feel more comfortable.
Well, quite honestly, then, in this case, Mark really wasn't open to a worldview or her sense making.
No, not at all. He was just, how many leaders you see like that? Damn the torpedoes, let's go.
Yeah.
And you'll get things done, but I always a believer in you'll get things done, but what you really are looking for then is, I'm going to get this checkbox checkboxed so that my boss gets off my back, as opposed to doing it because I really want to do it, need to do it. He gets why we're doing it. It becomes more busy work than what do we have to do. My team didn't grow 30% during COVID because we were worried about checking boxes. We went out there and figured it out, and they did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
And that's really where it came from. It was about, okay, let's pivot. And all the stuff that gets in your way, let's get it out of your way. How can I help? What do you need me for? And, I'm getting emails from my team at 11, 12 o'clock at night because they're still working on things. And they did that because they wanted to, because they cared about their customer. But they also knew that I would recognize it for them. When we had really good months, I'd always buy them something as a group and things like that. Just say thank you. And it's not that hard to do. But some managers and some leaders, some people just don't think that way.
Let's take another tangent just for
sure,
because it's fun. Hey, left turn. Okay, so you're in Intel right now, and what kind of fun? Again, if there's proprietary stuff you can't talk about, so be it. But what kind of fun stuff has Intel allowed you to now take all this?
This
you're
genius.
You're the ambassador of Quan now for leadership.
I'm the low resident propeller head.
What can you talk about? Like, what are the fun initiatives that they're allowing you to work on and do there?
Yeah, it's really about right now. It's really about delivering the right training in the right format to the right people, so it works for them. I think.
Now, is that a transformation for them because they're so huge, or what?
No, I wouldn't say it's a transformation. I would say it's an evolution. It'd probably be a
better
good
word.
Be a good word to look for it there and stuff like that. But, because sometimes people come up with trainings. When you're training, well, do we know if the training's really needed? And is it really helping? And are we getting any traction? Has it moved the needle forward? And now we're having the chance and the opportunity to step back and say, well, let's just take a look at this a little bit. Is this really what we needed? Does this really help people? And what do they need? You do that like environmental scanning and stuff like that to kind of see what's going on, just kind of get a feeling for it from around there. But it's great. I mean, they're doing really well. It's pretty exciting right now, actually.
Good. So going back, you're still at GCU, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Actually, this Thursday, knock on wood, I have an interview with Purdue to do online teaching for them, which I'm really focused and jazzed about, to say the least. Yeah, that
so you could do both, or how does that work?
Yeah, because it doesn't take up a lot of time. I mean, it takes up time, but you can do it from like, say, 6 o'clock at night to like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night each day, and you can pretty much get it all taken care of and move forward from there. But it also, what I love about it is it opens me up to new ideas. I'm teaching leadership classes, marketing classes, business classes, and people come up with new ideas and new ways of looking at things. I'll go, wow, I never looked at it like that before.
Well, you actually stole my thunder, but that's fine. So back to the GCU thing, I was going to ask you, we're a bunch of old farts.
Mm-hmm.
What is that connection with the younger audience done for you?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Well, dive a little deeper into here, because one of the main things that we've talked on this podcast is about our industry. And when I say industry, it's beyond construction. It's the entire AEC community that that we did this podcast for, Building Arizona. So I think it just dovetails perfectly, leadership with, here we've got, one of us blue hairs, of how we're how we're integrating with all those generations below us.
Yeah.
And we keep trying to tackle that topic. So I'd love to get your take on, go down any avenue you want, as far as what has it done to you in your own professional growth?
Right.
How are you seeing through a new lens? And then how are you taking that combined with your experience and being a better teacher, leader, and servant leader, to be honest?
Yeah, really good question. And I think the first thing that was really important to me was I think we look at, I use the term millennials, I think now, who knows what the most recent term is, or whatever term.
Sean, what are they called?
What are they called, Sean? Z? You just got down to a letter. You didn't want to do any more words after that. Just
next one will just be a symbol.
Next one will be like, it'll be like Led
Prince.
Zeppelin, right? No, Zofo and stuff like that, right? Yeah. No, and the misconception about who they are as people and stuff like that. There are some incredibly sharp young people out there that get it. There's a gentleman that
hold it. So are you only doing undergrad, or do you have grad school?
No, I have grad school too, but this is sometimes
so
people.
So you're getting all age groups.
All age groups, right?
But let's be honest, mostly 20s somethings.
Yeah,
right?
for the most part. There's some older folks that are coming back, like even like my age and stuff like that want to get their degrees and stuff like that.
Because they get the free parking pass.
Pretty much, yeah. That's pretty much what it is.
And the free Jello at the lunch.
Anything soft, yeah. That's what I want to eat. Anything soft, right? But there's a gentleman at GCU, and now his name's gonna skip past me, but he developed a electric skateboard, and he was in one of my classes. He was actually in my innovative leadership class. He was in one of my classes. I asked him, well, how'd you get started with that? He said, because I like to skateboard, and the ones that were out there were really not good. I said, well, what did you do? He goes, I just went out and researched them and built my own. I said, did you know how to build an engine before? He said, I had no idea. I'm like, you learned all this on yourself? He goes, yeah. And
YouTube.
I'm like, so I'm sitting there going, I'm kind of stupid. This guy's and now he's doing, he just got recognized a little while back, Forbes 30 under 30.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he just.
Oh, I think I read about that guy.
Yeah.
I think it was in Phoenix Business Journal.
Yeah. I'm blanking on his name. I feel terrible for doing that. I'm completely blanking on his name. But the reality is that, to your question, I mean, I would sit there and I'd look at people, and again, back to my sense making. I didn't make any preconceived notions about them. I wanted to see how they viewed things. And the interesting thing about it is when you teach a servant leader class, you have to teach it like a servant leader.
Yeah, otherwise you're the biggest hypocrite on the planet.
Exactly. I mean, I'm a complete hypocrite, right? Let's be real. And I don't want to do that. And I always tell people, learning doesn't happen just because you're going to class and you have to get a paper done by Monday, right? If stuff comes up, let me know. I mean, we can work with you and we'll get things squared away. But, and a great example is I learned a long time ago, and hope GCU's not listening too closely, but I usually don't ask for or care too much about the length of a paper, because I've never been in a business environment where somebody says, hey, Rob, can you write me a summary of that whole program and make sure it's 1,500 words? Yeah. It just doesn't work that way. Just be and I'm teaching them to be concise, collaborative, and all that stuff, and going from there. But I've learned different perspectives. I've had everything from people from other countries and single parents, mothers, fathers, whatever, and stuff like that. Kids just trying to get through school, just trying to learn and putting in the work and grinding it out and saying, hey, I have a challenge with this or a problem with that. And what's really interesting is they'll send me a lot of messages at times. I don't mean to bother you. I said, you're not bothering me. I don't know why that dynamic is there because it doesn't come from my side. I'm like, I don't know
But
why.
see, that's them not
That
understanding.
exactly.
They're not understanding the worldview. They're not understanding your sense
Exactly.
making.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You know, and I'm like, you're not. I said, I don't care if you message me every minute. Doesn't make a difference. That's what I'm here to help you learn.
yeah.
I mean, if I do my job right, you get an A in this class, as long as you put the work in. But to learn from all these different perspectives, you know, when you learn from someone who's, you know, like I went out and I taught a class on the out at for SRP out there by Talking Stick on the reservation, and completely different world. And the very first thing I did, I said, look, before we do anything today, I want to learn about your world. And the stuff that they were telling me about how the culture works, the Indian culture works, Native American Indian culture works, completely different from anything I'd ever seen. But because I understood that now, that I could augment my teaching to their world and kind of address things and connect with them and stuff like that. But that was an eye-opener for me. I'd never seen anything like it. I was like, really? I mean, I won't go into the details of it, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was completely foreign to everything I've ever known in my life. And it was a learning experience for me. So I always sit back and go, you know, all these people that I'm teaching, they're teaching me as much as I'm teaching them. I'm learning different things and seeing different perspectives. I mean, in any 1 week, I can read 90 to 120 papers that people are writing about this or that, or leadership or marketing or business. And they all have very different perspectives on it. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's kind of new because it's kind of fresh.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the old beat it down, you know, well, I have my portable MBA book here. I should be smart.
Okay.
It's not like that.
So on that notion then, how in that evolution that you talked about versus transformation, by the way, I like that, is how's that allowing you to change the curriculum as you go?
And that's a tricky one.
Because let's be honest, and this is no offense to GCU or any higher education, you can't just go willy-nilly all the time.
You can't.
You know, you got to have some structure.
Yeah.
But at the same token, the structure could be limiting everything that you're talking about.
And
so how are you able to balance that, Rob?
And what's look at that, huh? What's interesting about it, especially from GCU, is the provost, Randy Gibb, Dr. Gibb, great guy. He just kind of gives them the information that they get for the class is like, hey, write about this. They don't get down to the weeds of you must talk about. They're going to say, look, I'm going to give you like a 20,000 foot view and let you put it together.
Here's two sidelines.
Yeah, go figure it out. Yeah.
If you want to run all like the analogy, if you want to pass all the way to the end zone, just score the touchdown.
Score the touchdown and be done with it, right? And I've seen a lot of schools starting to do that more. They're kind of giving you, rather than saying, you know, I want you to talk about the 4 Ps and how they directly relate to Nike's new marketing program, blah, 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 blah. They'll say something like, well, why don't you look at the 4 Ps and align it to a company that you're familiar with and whether you think they're hitting on all cylinders or not, in so many words. And I like that. I like to see people using their minds, and because really as a leader, I want them to talk to me. I want their perspectives. I don't want to always, let's be honest, I don't want to have to bring the rock every day. I don't want to have to drop it on the table and go, okay, here's what we're going to do. You know, I want people around me to be able to say, well, how about this or how about that? And to tell you how it got, I'll go again back to my Wesco days. I'm getting a little off on a different tangent.
You're fine. Go.
Right. So I had 2 gentlemen working for me, Kevin Kiernan and Matt Payne, phenomenal individuals. So as you know, in our industry, you know, distributors want to get stuff on spec. Yeah. Once you're on spec, we're locked in. Everybody's happy. We're jumping for joy. And you're sitting there going, yeah, you're making more money.
Yeah, it's like it's like the lobbying of supply chain.
Exactly, right? So we were some large project, about $1.5 million. So Kevin got the project spec, got our stuff on spec. So the way Wesco works, which is fair, if we have a better price, we give the same price to everybody. We're not going to give somebody else a better price. We're going to be fair to everybody else. Hey, you're buddies, but here's where we're at, guys. We got to be fair about this and be ethical, right? So Matt's contractor won the job, not Kevin's, just because of how they priced up their work and stuff like that.
In totality.
Yeah, it happens, right? Yep. So Matt walks over to Kevin and says, well, I just want to let you know that I'm going to write you up so you take half of this job, because if you didn't get it on spec, I never would have closed it. I just sat there in awe.
How cool is that?
When have you ever seen that in a sales environment? Now, that's not just Rob leading. That's these people being very comfortable, all being a part of a team. And we're talking, they split $1.5 million. That was serious money. Right now, Matt's wife is going, you did what? But
actually, he's out the front door by now.
He's already in the truck, or he's going down the street to like the Hampton Inn. But to be able to have that comfort with each other and learn from each other and be a part of everything. You know, it's like we have all these companies now, I think, you know, they all say, well, you know, our employees are our biggest asset. Then listen to them. You know, if you had a machine that wasn't running right, you'd stop it and find out why it wasn't running right, wouldn't you? So listen to your people too as well. And it's okay if some of these younger folks have very different ideas and very different perspectives, because, you know, Lord knows we keep putting old people in the big government house, and that's not really doing much. Maybe somebody younger would have a better idea. Who knows, right? Let's just go from there. But if I spend most of my day just learning from people. Like one thing I've learned from you, which is really, you'll still kind of surprise you a little bit. Okay. Outside of being an incredibly snazzy dresser, by the way, I want to let you know.
This is all for you.
That's wow. I'm honored.
Laverne and Shirley called. They want their wardrobe back from the 19th.
Lenny and Squiggy wants their wardrobe. But you are very, you're very open with who you are as a person and what you're all about and how you think. And that's, I applaud that in people, that they have that confidence to go, well, here's kind of where I'm at. Because, and I would call you a servant leader, because I think what happens is people hear the term servant leader, and number one, they have a hard time making the connection. But number two, they're like, well, that means they're soft. No, it just means that they have enough strength and humility to be able to open themselves up and say, here's the deal. Here's where it's at, because they know who they are. They don't have to worry about that. They want to help other people grow and develop. And that's really where it starts to turn. When I started teaching servant leadership, it really did change my perspective on a lot of different things as far as leadership goes.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Bleuwave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Bleuwave to get it done right the first time.
So one of the other questions I wanted to ask you was, so you're both, you're in industry, but you're also in academics or academia. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to be connected to, let's break it down into sales terminology here is, you're on the B2C type thing because you're directly related to students. Mm-hmm. But how is your peer group? How is your think tank group, whether it's Purdue, GCU, ASU, I don't care what it is. How are you guys doing? What are you doing better? How can you better effectuate this to the marketplace than just going, I guess what I'm saying is, how do you guys get away from the B2C to transaction and go to B2B transaction where you can have a greater impact on this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes completely logical sense.
And so I'm just curious, how in your brain, before the legacy of Dr. Rob goes into a flower pot,
yeah, exactly,
or a mausoleum, how do you make that? How can you help make that change? Because I look at it as an outsider looking in, going, to me, that's a disconnect in our marketplace right now.
Well,
we're relying, me as a business owner, I'm relying too much on that person coming with Dr. Rob's influence on it as a servant leader to then impact my company.
Right.
And something's wrong with that thinking and that paradigm.
It is because then you start having people, for lack of a better word, following paths of certain people, and they won't get out of that certain path. And I always implore people, learn as much as you possibly can about everything. Right. I mean, and I don't say that you want to learn everything from how to paint to how to chisel and what, but the reality of it is, if you're looking at, if you take an avenue, you take a perspective, there's a certain leader that you align to, and there's a bazillions of them out there. It's okay to challenge them. It's okay to say, well, I don't have to buy into everything they're talking about. I like this, and this, but not this. And, to answer your question, when you start talking about B2B, I've just always learned, I guess it's part of my background, my DNA, whatever you want to say, but, people want to be talked to, not at, and people want someone to listen to them. And, Kelly Williams had the greatest line ever. Kind of loved it. He goes, the misconception about effective listening is it actually happened. Right. And he's dead on the money with it, because you don't know if it happened. You don't really know if it happened until afterwards. So not a lot of people say, okay, JG, what I hear you saying is this. Am I right? Okay. So now I know where you're going. Right. They'll just have a conversation, be done with it, and move on. And it's funny because I bought an Apple Watch, right? And I did it begrudgingly, because you'd be in meetings with people and they're always looking at their watch, because text message. I'm like, dude, for just 20 minutes, just shut it all off and talk to me, right? You know what I'm saying? Well, as JJ looks at his watch.
It's funny. True statement. I was at a meeting before this for a couple hours, and the facilitator of the meeting did the phone lockup thing.
Yeah.
And I've never seen people fidget.
Yeah, because they don't know what to do now. They got to touch. Yeah.
Even, in other meetings, it's like, hey, turn it off, turn it down, don't do it. But, and I've been in meetings before like this, but just today, and with what you're saying, to watch the disconnect of someone. It forced everyone to listen to that facilitator.
And was the meeting more productive?
Oh, absolutely.
Heck
Because
yeah.
then as they went around, you had to rate the effectiveness of the meeting, and everyone was at 8 or 9s.
Yeah.
There wasn't anyone below an 8.
No.
But because they were engaged, they were made, all these kind of things you're talking about.
Exactly. And, I used to, when I was working at Mobile Mini, I had a woman I report to, Lynn Corville, really great manager. She was the SVP of HR. And one of the simplest things that she really impressed me with is her office would be, if her door was, I know people can't really see this now, but if her door was in front of you and she'd be kind of off to the left working, looking out the window, which was where her desk was positioned. If you came in and knocked on her door and said, Lynn, she would physically turn away from her computer and look at you and go, yeah, how can I help you? As opposed to working on the computer going, yeah, how can I help you? Like, well, you really can't if you're doing that and this. Because we can multitask, but we can't multitask good. No one can do two things at the same time well. I mean, I know you're still getting the chewing gum and walking thing down. You're doing really good at that, actually, by the way. I want to let you know.
Tripping is a little...
You fall really well. But the reality of it is you have to, again, you just have to be able to want to listen to people.
Yeah.
And it's so, it's like I tell people all the time, you equate it back to a sales environment. Sales isn't hard. It's really not. If you just sit there and listen to people and say, you know what, I don't know if I can help you, to be honest with you. I don't know if I can. But if you listen to their needs and fulfill their needs and take care of them, that's all they really want. And in your position, right? I'm paraphrasing for you, obviously. Just don't cause me any more grief than I've already got. Don't have something show up late, right? Don't have something show up broken.
With that statement, we're still friends. I got to think about that.
Right? No doubt.
All you do is cause me grief, Rob. Hey, I want to go back to one other thing you said, and then I want to pick your brain on the last part of the episode.
Sure.
As you were talking about absorbing information and trying to learn as much as you can,
right?
What I've seen, and I'm gonna relate this to construction.
Sure.
Is a specialist versus a generalist. I'm not saying it's switched, but think of like when we were raised in construction, a true general contractor that could do everything.
Yeah.
Like you called Bob, the community.
And he came out and did everything.
Plumbing, electrical, all of it.
Everything. Some of it not so good.
I think I'm seeing, and this is my bias, maybe I'm trying to do a better worldview and better sense making.
There you go. Look at that.
See, I'm applying myself already.
There you go. It's awesome.
Maybe I'm going to try to build some equity too.
Maybe
I'm actually going to take some equity. The generalist, the all-knowing, kind of I may know a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
I think they are becoming man, woman, different, becoming invaluable to organizations.
Absolutely.
And the specialist, I'm not saying they're going away.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of looking at someone that it's very easy to pick on accounting and controller work.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Where if they're just numbers driven, but they can't get along with everyone, how are you really going to communicate and effectuate what you need for, balance sheet, P&L, and all the performance things that come out? So I'm really glad you said that, because I think we've gotten too focused on being too centric to one task.
I would agree.
And in a market like what's going to, we've got a better situation here in Arizona, but let's say, a full-on recession kind of takes place this year in other parts of the nation. I mean, if you're a specialist and on the bench, what other skills do you have?
Nothing.
Right?
Yeah, that's what you do for. But it's funny because we used to say back in the old days, a lot of contractors, I'm painting with a broad brush, were really good at one area, and a company kind of burst up around them like, oh my God, now I got to do all this stuff. I actually have to go do it. Where it's good to know enough about everything, but you have those people like you have them. Those subs you can rely on and go, he's my guy, she's my girl. That's the person that works with me because they know how I work. They get what's going on. They know what kind of info. I don't need to know everything they know, but they also need to know what I need to be informed on.
Right.
And it's funny, going back to Mobile Mini when I was with Lynn, I sat down, I'll never forget, I sat down there one day and I said, Lynn, I got to ask you a question. And I said, I've heard, and she interrupted me, she goes, that I'm hard to work with. I said, yeah, I don't see it. I said, I don't see it at all. I'm not seeing it in any way, shape, or form. And she says, Rob, let me tell you something. She goes, I've been in HR pretty much all my life. I know it like the back of my hand. It's never going to change. It's like, don't get us sued, right? Let's be real. She knew what she was talking about. I said, well, how come you leave me alone? And she, without hesitating, she said, because I don't know what you know. I rely on you to know what you know and tell me. And I was like, wow. And which is really where you're going with this. It's like, have those go-to people like, hey, what do you think? Like Sam, my mentor. Hey, Sam, I'm looking at this stock, or I might make this move. What do you think? Because Sam's had businesses and he's sold them, and he's 74 years old and just went and bought a brand new Jaguar. I hate the guy. And he has all his hair. But the reality of it
all
is,
comes back to the hair.
It all comes back. He's got really nice hair. He really does. I bust his chops about it. But it's having those people that you can go to that are that sounding board. And sometimes those people are your own employees just out the door going, hey, what do you think? Like when I hired people at Wesco, I'd have some of my people on my team just interview them. What should I ask them? Whatever you want. I don't care. Just what do you think? Is it going to work or is it? Because, right, we hire for culture, right? We can train for skill, right? Everybody says, let's do that. Make sure they fit. Matt didn't give half of his stuff to
talent and temperament and train for.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Because it wasn't working in the culture. It's just the way it is.
All right. So in the last half of the hour or whatever we're down to, what haven't we asked you? Like, what does Dr. Rob want to tell the world?
What does Dr. Rob want to tell the world? Well, go to Think Like a Leader at thinklikealeader.net. Go there if you want.
Explain, everyone, what is that?
It's basically, it's a small little consulting company I have. I don't get too deep into it, but meaning I don't do a lot of hours with and stuff like that. But it's basically this program together where I can go in and like over 2 days kind of help people learn to think like a leader and things like that. And it's gotten to the point where I can walk out of a room. I can walk out of a room and say, okay, those 5 people are going to lead. These 2 are on the fence. These 4 are completely lost and will probably never get it. Now that's my sense making. I understand that. I get it. Right.
So much for your world.
Right. I gear down a little bit, but sometimes it's, because the misconception is I'm not coming in to make them a different leader. I'm not coming in saying how you're leading is wrong. I'm just trying to hoping to expand your view a little bit, which quite frankly, when you do, you start to take things off your plate, which is a beautiful thing to have, right? You can, wow, this person's got that, this person's got this, she's got that, he's got this, but that's really what it is. I mean, it's really about trying to make that all better wherever I can and, try to help people out and volunteering at some score stuff and stuff like that. And being the musician that I am, writing songs and having fun doing that. And maybe someday I'll actually do something with one of them. Lord knows there's enough guitars in the house. We'll figure that part out at the end of the day, You
got to have hobbies,
you
right?
You gotta do something, right? But no, it really is. It's just, I mean, the more that I can come on or places like this and just kind of spread the theory, I wouldn't even say spread the word of the gospel. Just spread the theory. You can take it. I'd be a hypocrite if I said, no, you must follow my theory down because I just told you not to follow these guys. Just see what you think and go from there. It's amazing when you get people working with you as opposed to working for you, which you have that in it's your environment. You live in there all the time. But it just makes life a heck of a lot easier because they own it. You don't have to own it. They can own it and let them go do it.
What are you going to stay in the academic side for a while longer?
Yeah. Maybe down the road, semi-retire and teach full-time, maybe.
Ooh.
If that'd be nice. I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it, and I try to make it engaged. Now they call it edutainment. It's no longer just education. You have to entertain people when you teach them. But just because,
Are you still in classroom or virtual or both?
I'm doing a little bit in classroom, but almost everything is virtual.
Okay, got
Purdue will be totally virtual. GCU is totally virtual and stuff like that. But Dubuque University over there by where the 10 and the Broadway Curve and all that intersects, they're on ground. They're like a boutique. Okay. They're 3 hours a night, 5 weeks, but you have instructors of classes like 8 people, 7 people, 5 people. Really nice for people that want to go back to school but don't want to be in a room full of 250 people wondering how they're going to learn, which is the truth. So, but down the road, I can't see doing nothing. You've known me long enough. I can't see doing nothing.
You sitting around.
Yeah.
Might as well just get your plot now.
My wife will divorce me, throw me back out in the street.
Again?
Yeah, really. The first time wasn't enough.
Well, Rob, I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Thank you.
Thank you for just the heartfelt message about leadership. I think walking through those 4 pillars is just really, it's exciting to know that there's a number of great leadership, like you said, books, teachings and things. This is just another avenue.
Yeah.
And to hear it out of a local that's had,
success with it.
Well, you've had success, but you've had influence in the Valley here, and particularly in our space, in the construction AEC space. And, even with you over at Intel and everything, it's still, the connections are always there.
Always there, yep.
Thanks for coming on today. And
Thank you.
If anyone wants to reach out to Rob, it's Dr. Rob Wengrzyn, last name Wengrcyn. Yes, us Polacks do have some vowels, but they're far and few between.
Yeah, I lost a few there. Rob, can I buy a vowel engine?
Till next time on Wheel of Fortune. We're out of here.
Yeah, no doubt.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, buddy.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Torrey Contracting and Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levenske on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in live every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to to make the dream a reality. Until next time, make it a great day.